Thank you, Victor, and Victor will be back with a little more music in just a bit. We had another first this morning in our brief history of this young organization. We had Victor was here setting up, and two other music performers walked in, a musical duo that thought they were going to play today, so it was the first time we ever had a double book. It's some kind of confusing, I don't know. No, that's not your fault, but anyway, the thing I wanted to share about that was the group that showed up that thought they were going to play today is a group named Wild Rabbit Salad. I thought that would have been good for Easter. But we're glad Victor's here, he's awesome, and thank you for being here. Each week at this point in our gathering, we do something called a community moment, where someone from our community gets up and shares something they've been thinking about. It could be part of your journey to free thought, it could be a book or a movie, or just some meditation on life that you'd like to share with us, and it's always fun. There's always awesome times, and if you're interested in doing it, please get with me. We would love to get you on the calendar. Today, our presenter is Jerry Friedman, who is a lifelong skeptic, and I'm reading the intro that's provided for me, except for once believing in Santa Claus, which he attributes to his passive Jewish upbringing. Several weeks ago, he shared with us his doubts that proto-humans ate meat for their brain to grow, which has been bugging me every time I have a hamburger. That one's stuck into my head like crazy. I haven't gone vegan yet, but I'm slowing down. Today he will share another subject in dire need for skepticism that is often overlooked by skeptics. So let's welcome Jerry Friedman.
How many people here consider themselves skeptics? Wonderful. Pretty much everyone. What does it mean to be a skeptic? Somebody give me a definition? Patrick, right?
Fixed belief. Yeah, challenge the fixed belief without proof.
Great, I accept that. Challenge the fixed belief without proof. All right, so I'm an atheist because I am doubtful. I'm doubtful of the assumption that God exists. I am a feminist because I'm doubtful of the assumption that men are superior to women. And as Mike was saying, I'm vegan because I'm doubtful of the assumption that humans are superior to non-humans. So a couple of weeks ago we had Otis, I don't recall his last name, present.
You choose not to recall his last name.
Well, on his Facebook page, he uses the name Futhermucker.
Yeah.
So I'm not clear if that's his family name. But he presented on the glory of GMO food. And so I'm talking not so much, I'm not an expert on GMO, I'm not talking so much today about why GMO is good or bad, I don't know, but I'm talking today about why we should be skeptical about what Otis was saying. So does anybody know what his credentials were? Did he? I don't remember his credentials being announced. Were they announced?
PhD in molecular biology from Oxford.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, there's lots.
Okay.
He's got a resume.
Did he disclose that he is the president of the firm that he was talking about?
No, he serves on many boards, I'm sure.
Okay, so he's the president of biotech.
Yeah, he represents his own industry, absolutely.
Okay, but was that disclosed in his talk?
Yeah, it was in the intro.
Okay. I didn't catch it. I don't know if anybody else caught it. I didn't caught it. And so one issue of bias, you'd like to know where they're coming from. So bias doesn't mean that they're dishonest, right? People can be biased without being dishonest. But I think that as a community, we should know what their background is and if they're actually selling their product. I think that's an important issue. What long-term human health studies did he present to us? He presented no long-term human health studies. I actually asked him in the Q&A session, and he had no studies to present. Why is that? How many people here know if you've eaten GMO food or not?
He said we all have.
Okay, he said we all have.
Yeah.
Now, how can you have a human health study if everybody has had GMO? Where's the control group?
Right.
Right, okay. So there can be no long-term human health study. There's actually a study here assessing the survival of transgenic DNA, plant DNA, in human gastrointestinal tract. 2004 Nature Biotechnology journal. The quote out here is that 3 of 7 subjects in the study, so 40% of the subjects in the study, showed evidence of low-frequency gene transfer from genetically modified soy to the microflora in the small bowel before their involvement in these experiments. So what the study said is that the study itself, they didn't find any evidence of gene transfer, but 40% of the subjects had foreign alien DNA in the microflora in their gut. What does that cause? What changes does that make for human health? We don't know. We don't know. But they have alien DNA in their gut. So why don't we know about these things? There was a Reuters reported April 9th, 2014, just a few weeks ago. There is a new federal law that's called the proposed federal law that's called the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act of 2014. Has anybody heard of this proposed law? You've got one person. This is out of Reuters. A Republican congressman from Kansas introduced legislation on Wednesday, a few weeks ago, that would nullify efforts in multiple states requiring labeling of genetically modified foods. The bill specifically prohibits any mandatory labeling of foods developed using bioengineering. So this is an effort of the federal government and its lobbyists to not let you know if you've eaten genetically modified food. Does this sound like the Roman Catholic Church who resisted the Bible being translated from Latin to English? Right. There is a campaign to not let you know when you've eaten GMO food or not. Now, is GMO healthy or not? Who knows? All right. So earlier, 2013, there was an article published in the Polish Journal of Veterinary Sciences, and they concluded that there is no probability of genetically modified DNA transferring to animal tissues or gut bacterial flora. 2013. And yet, a few years earlier, 2006, there was an article published in the International Journal of Hygiene and Environmental Health, and they said that there was detection of genetically modified DNA sequences in milk from the Italian market. From 60 samples covering 12 milk brands, it demonstrated GM corn, maize, in 1/4 of the samples, and soybeans in 1/8 of the samples. And so we have, even in the science journals, there is no agreement, and there's constant contradiction over whether DNA will go from the food to the human to the gut. And then nobody knows what the effect is on our health. So why shouldn't we trust corporations? I presume everybody here has heard of General Motors, right? And what did they do with their recent scandal about the ignition switch? They covered it up. They resisted telling the public. Eli Lilly, you may have heard Eli Lilly in the news just recently, was fined $9 billion for failure to disclose a heightened risk of cancer with one of their drugs. $9 billion. How about the tobacco industries? What kind of junk science did they publish, and what did they not tell the public? We can come, even Otis Feathermucker told us about DDT, right? DDT was supposed to be safe for decades. And what was the result? There was another investigation published in Mother Jones magazine that I heard on NPR just recently about the estrogenic activity of plastic. So if you eat any food or drink anything from plastic, there's a chance that the plastic will leach estrogen-like chemicals into your food, and there's a fear of that causing breast cancer and other issues. So there's been a fight about this issue for years. There was a scientist out of Texas who had done tests and shown estrogenic activity in plastic, and the company Eastman, which was part of Eastman Kodak, Eastman had published its own science, and they went on a campaign against this one Texas professional, this university professor who was doing the studies and defaming him and saying how terrible he was. The Mother Jones came out with, here's a quote out of the investigation, out of the Mother Jones investigation. Eastman, which never disclosed these findings to its customers, later commissioned another study, this one involving breast cancer cells. Again, the initial results appeared positive for estrogenic activity. In an email to colleagues, Eastman's senior toxicologist, James Deo, called this an oh shit moment. So they had covered things up, and when they were starting to change the protocol, then they found that there was estrogenic activity in their plastics. So there were, one more thing, the rats that were chosen. So there were some rats chosen for the study. by Eastman, and the rats that were chosen, that came out of the investigation, were known to be estrogen resistant 100 times more than average rats. And so the company actually chose rats that would bias the results. Why not trust these corporations? There were a few implicit reasons why I did not trust, why I'm skeptical, why I did not trust Otis's presentation. Firstly, he failed to disclose his position, at least in my opinion, he failed to disclose his position. I'd like to know if the salesman is here selling his products, or if an impartial scientist is here giving us a scientific review. He demonized organic food. This is something that Natalie brought up. I don't know if you recall, but he said he does not trust organic food because there might be animal feces on it. Now, that's no reason not to trust organic food. That's reason to wash your organic food or demand that it not be grown with animal feces. But that's, I guess, a personal decision. And most importantly for me, he had his own admission of the profit motive, not the human health motive. He said time and time again that companies would not invest in GMO technology because, unless there was a profit to come out of it, because it cost $50 to $100 million to bring these things to market. There's profit there, right? He also said that the farmers would not use this unless it would show profit, the ability to profit for them. He would not, farmers would not demand this type of genetically modified seeds unless it would bring them money. His statements here were about money and not about human health. So is GMO safe? I don't know. I don't know if GMO is safe or not. Maybe yes, maybe no. But as a skeptic, I'm not going to trust GMO. I'm not going to trust plastic. I'm actually reducing the amount of plastic I have in my food. I'm not going to trust these things until there is some proof. This is human health, right? What happens when a mother has GM soy and the DNA may go into her bloodstream as it did with the cows, go into the milk as it did with the cows, and go into her baby? What are the consequences of this? I don't know, but I'm skeptical. I want proof. So in closing, I'll read a quote from Elizabeth Kucinich. She is the wife of former Congressman Dennis Kucinich. She was interviewed on RT.com the day after the federal law was proposed. And she says, these chemical companies, they're actually patenting the seeds, and they're the people who are really making the money from this. They're making the money from the patents. Now, people put out that GMOs are high yielding, that they're drought tolerant, that all these amazing benefits. That's not true. There's a lot of scientific information that shows actually, in very tough climatic conditions, organic agriculture outperforms the GMO. I'm on the board of the Rodale Institute, for example, and for your information, Rodale promotes organic agriculture. We have a 30-year farming system trial where we've done organic next to conventional for the last 8 or 9 years. We've been growing GMOs next to them so we can really say what performs and what doesn't. So it's the people who are holding the patents who are trying to say something for the benefit of society. It's for cheap food, it's for feeding masses, when really it's to get those royalties rolling in. So again, who am I to say? I don't know. And for a main presentation, I don't think it's practical having a format where there's actually a debate here, but I think that maybe having more of a debate mind or a skeptical mindset where we could have somebody who is invested in GMO or one side and somebody who's invested in organic with the other side to actually have an exchange of information rather than having a salesman. Thank you.
Thanks for the profound thoughts, Jerry. I'm rethinking if I'm going to eat lunch today or not. Okay.